Welcome back to Circuito Monteblanco here in Spain with the rather extraordinary Ferrari 849 Testarossa. Now today we're going to go out and drive on track in the 1050 horsepower car, which of course is a big one for me as an owner of the predecessor, the SF90 Stradale and the SF90 XX Stradale. We're going to drive it first on the track, then we're going to take a full tour, go through all of the details, the engine, the interior, the design, the aerodynamics, and have a proper drive out on the road, hopefully avoiding the rain later on. I think we should get straight to this. Hi guys, I'm Shmi, hello, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to Spain and the Ferrari 849 Testarossa. It has been a disturbingly early start this morning. We got here to the track in the dark after checking out at 6:45 in the morning and not very many hours of sleep. But before we're going to be taking one of the yellow cars out onto the road later, there's actually another one just lurking in the pit box there. We'll hopefully be able to check out if it starts raining. We're going to come through because here in the pit garages, we have the Assetto Fiorano versions of the 849 Testarossas ready to go out on track. And we're going to be talking more about what the Assetto Fiorano is, the Fiorano package named after Ferrari's Track, and then it's going to be time to drive on a venue I've been to a number of times. This is where Ferrari hosted the international media test drives of the 296 GTB back when it was newly introduced, and I've been here with Aston Martin, their V8 Vantage, Mercedes-AMG and the GT 4-door 63S E Performance. But this is a car that is very relevant to the channel, very relevant to my own collection, and one that I want to have a lot of thoughts about when we experience it today and get to share that with you. So here we are at Circuito Monteblanco to drive the 849 any moment now. The cars emerge, obviously in the traditional Ferrari red, with the painted livery and the more hardcore package. And the Cup 2 tyres, crucially we should mention, much more at home on the racetrack part of the package and those carbon fibre wheels, reducing the unsprung mass as well. Apparently I have a couple of minutes before it's going to be time for me to go out on track, so let's talk about this. Introduce the 849 and in particular what we have here, the Assetto Fiorano. The 849 is the successor to the SF90 Stradale. It is the flagship of what Ferrari call the pilot range, borrowing learnings from its bigger brother, the F80 hypercar. The SF90 had the 4-litre twin-turbo V8 with the 3 electric motors. This develops on that, the same layout, but now with 1,050 horsepower. We're about to have one come blasting past down the straight, and you get a faint sense of that V8. We're going to touch more on the sound a little bit later on. But the design is inspired by the prototypes of the 70s, the likes of the 512S and the 512M. The name Testarossa has raised more than a few eyebrows. It's about the red cam covers on the engine. Think that the 80s car with the strakes down the side, how different that was to the 50s cars with its voluptuous curves. This being the Assetto Fiorano though, is the more track-focused version. It saves about 30 kilos of weight, but on the predecessor, the SF90, if you had the Assetto Fiorano, you lost the ability to have an optional lift system, which for driving in regular environments was a bit of a problem. For this, they've introduced the Magnaride suspension that you can now lift to get over that problem. It also has more aggressive aero, particularly at the rear, with these twin tail wings, as they call them, inspired by the old 512s, but also the likes of the XX cars from the XX program, the track-going supercars. Loads of carbon fibre on this example, which is painted in Rosso Fiammante. This is a new metallic version of Rosso Corsa, so very true to traditional Ferraris, but a modernised paint. It also has the optional painted livery. This is in Bianco Cervino and extends over the top of the Nero DS roof. Inside, Assetto Fiorano has all of your carbon fibre, the best weight carbon fibre bucket seats, which are fantastic. Of course, as I mentioned, the carbon wheels with the Cup 2 tyres. You can opt for a Cup 2R as well, should you prefer. And this particular example, spec'd to the 9s. There's going to be so much more to tell you, but that's our introduction before time to drive. And interestingly, there's even a camo car up there. Maybe they're testing something. You might have noticed a near match, but let me show you in here, because one of the big topics of conversation is the fact the steering wheel now has a physical start button for the Emotion. The E-Manettino is through the centre, your traditional modes Manettino on that side. A few other changes to touch on. The design is a significant difference to any other Ferrari model, and of course these best weight carbon bucket seats, which absolutely fit the purpose. I'm going to talk more about those very shortly as well. Into gear, we've got the thumbs up. All right. Out we go. Circuito Monteblanco, drying from this morning's rain. very much still with some wet on the ground. That's going to make it interesting in a 1050 horsepower car. So we'll take it easy. We've got a couple of stints, a couple of sessions, late apex through T1. Obviously I've got TC and everything fully on. I think that's the way we're going to be keeping it for the time being. It's drying on this side though, so that's beneficial. Oh, the downshift sounds, the character. This is just in sport mode. There's a spine tingle when you get on the throttle. I hope the microphones aren't blown out. Ferrari V8s have a habit of that. As we go down the straight. Okay, so let's go up into qualifying mode, which gives you the full whack of electric juice. More than you had otherwise. It's phenomenally fast, you know. Right, foot flat. Oh my gosh, you cling on here. $250, $260, $270, $280. It's so fast. Let's go up then one more into race mode. So it'll back off TC just a touch, which is going to get very interesting, I'm sure. The shift sound gets even more dramatic. The auto gearbox is absolutely brilliant. You can tell it's the XX logic, the XX style and character. I'd like a bit more confidence from braking. I know it's wet, so it's a bit unfair. So fast. Whoa, it's also so slippy. So we'll have a cool down lap. Just gonna shift manually for a moment. Yeah, you really get more character from it if you go into manual here when you're shifting at the higher RPMs. At the lower RPMs, you get a little bit, but you want more of the feeling. I'm really, really impressed by the performance. Back into the pit lane we go. I tell you what, it's actually a bit of a handful, you know? I mean, the conditions don't help, but it doesn't have, obviously, the delicate poise of the 296 Speciale. It's not that. It's not supposed to be that, even though it's the Assetto Fiorano. It's supposed to be more of the flagship road supercar. But you definitely have to keep your wits about you, especially under braking. Gets a little nervous on the tyre and conditions balance. First laps under the belt then. We're going to go out again very quickly for some more. It's really fast. Oh, look at this. Come in here. Look at the exhaust. Obviously, Inconel system and titanium as well, hence why you've got the bluing. So that was the first outing. Doesn't help that it's slightly wet and greasy, but I tell you what. It's insane that you can walk into a dealer and buy a car that's this fast. It's absolutely insane what it can do. Out we go again. I'm in two minds here as to whether I drive manually or whether I just let the car do the talking and do it in automatic. Because cars like this, they're getting to a stage now where they just do everything. So in terms of the line, we need to be slightly off, especially here, the normal racing line, to avoid the slippiest part of the track. On the exit especially there. I'm falling into the trap that I used to fall into with the pista banging into the red line because it comes up so quickly. The ABS Evo system is in overdrive in these conditions. Some short shifting actually really helps keep the car more composed. It's quite technically challenging today, this track with these conditions. We're both slipping and sliding all over the place. It might not look that fast, but trust me, this feels about on edge for what we can do today with the grip that's available. It's so slippery. If I can say so myself, I'm quite impressed with how we're driving, all things considered. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie about that. Oh goodness, right, let's go back into auto. It's a little bit leery today. We'll just coast it round from here. I've got aching cheekbones. I do think it squirrels around, even considering the conditions, probably more than I would have expected. But that's the balance when you throw this much power into a car like this. What do you expect? It's hardly going to be able to put it all down, and it's still heavily rear biased at the end of the day. You know, you're still getting the 830 horsepower of the combustion engine to the back. Obviously down the straights it's decoupling, but it's a bit of a mad machine. It's a bit of a mad machine. Into the pit lane. Slightly new graphics and visualizations on the display as well. Whoa, that was, I was going to say pretty intense, but actually, on the balance of it, not too bad. Not too bad. Not too uncomfortable, not too stressed. Had a good time. That's normally my measure, because sometimes on these days you just get in a car you're not familiar with, full send, and you're like, what's going on? Right, track drive done. Very, very good experience. Not a bad start. Right, we've got a minute to catch bearings, then it will be a quick walk around to go through all the details of the car, lunch and a drive on the road. First impressions, of course, between sport and race, a lot of the different systems are changing. ABS Evo in particular, in sport it's doing a lot more, you feel that. In race, it's a lot more down to you. There's a lot of torque vectoring happening on the front axle, especially with the electric motors, but you can't dictate that in these conditions to really test and experiment with it. I think my biggest takeaway from the track drive is how much of the XX character that we have in the 849 Testarossa, particularly the shift logic, the sound. You don't have the extra boost, so slightly down on the response of the electric motors in that context, but you do have a lot of the shift bangs, a lot of the mid-range excitement and noise in race, especially over sport. So I'm impressed by what the car offers, and especially when you consider this is a hypercar for 400,000 or 500,000. This is a hypercar very much in supercar territory. Time to go and breathe, then let's go through all the details. Moving to the walk around. There's a lot to talk about with this car, right? The looks themselves have been divisive. to say the least, because it's so different. Now, as an owner of an SF90 and an SF90XX, I was hopeful that when its successor would land, they wouldn't just take the looks of the XX and transplant them onto the regular vanilla model. They've done something completely different, where that is very much XX inspired, the ethos of being a full out-and-out track car. This takes some retro nods, but in a modernized way. And one of the things I found so interesting talking with Ferrari's chief of design, Flavio Manzoni, is that the idea behind this is to create something that has its own new identity. Yes, it's a Testarossa by name, but it can't just look like the old car, not only because of regulations with the aggressive strakes, but also things have changed. Where you used to have radiators in the side that need the cooling, the radiators are now in the front, the intercoolers are there. It's all a totally different setup, so it doesn't fit to literally just look at the past and create a resto mod. The idea is to create something that in 20 years' time, you look back at and say, wow, that was really era-defining. So the looks are inspired by the 512S and the 512M, those race cars of the 70s. Very much a wedge line that you can see throughout the car, starting around the front, with very, very, very straight lines. You've got the bumperettes that stick out of the nose. Those are part of the crash structure, but also to do with the aero. You then have the lights integrated into this band. That has a couple of purposes. One, the double wing style aero blades at the front. Two, a little bit reminiscent of pop-up headlights, almost disguised and disappeared into the bodywork, of course within the regulations and what you can do in today's world. Come further around to the side here though, lots of carbon fibre contrasting against the Giallo Triplo Strato on this car. You've got a few different wheel options, enormous brakes because of course of the weight of the electric motors, and a lot of changes to the strategy of the electric system, especially with regeneration and keeping the electric range and battery. Come further down the side and you'll spot that bumperette line that runs all the way along and through the door, slicing to the wings at the back. This blade is a big talking point. The way it fits here obviously segments the car. Now you could say that's awkward because it's different, but the idea is to do with the airflow and again creating a modern take. So the upper section is actually airflow managed towards cooling of the rear brakes more than before, the lower section obviously in towards the engine cooling. A lot of aero work also taking place under the car with multiple sets of turning vanes. As you come towards the back, this is where on the non-Assetto Fiorano car you have this regular twin wing flanking on either side, helping significantly with downforce. Again, actually, they had to re-engineer the structural points underneath because this is part of the crash structure, given it's the rear point of the car at the back, and creates a low pressure area of air right beneath it, all to do with helping generate the maximum downforce and aero efficiency. I've just popped the engine bay, so we can take a look in there in a second. But before we do, between the twin tails, you might spot this very narrow piece right here. Like the SF90, this is an active spoiler, and the way it works is extending upwards to help with stability at the rear, with air braking, and of course depending on your different driving conditions. The SF90 had one almost sandwiched between two parts of the bodywork, so you didn't really see it. There are then loads of openings and louvers, and in particular, back here, sandwiched between the two enormous tailpipes, there is a triple louvre, like on the F12 TDF and the SF90 XX and the old 250 GTO, which is all to do with helping the airflow out. It uses an area of low pressure here between the diffuser and the spoilers above to all work in harmony to get that through as quickly as possible. Now, coming to the engine bay, and I find this so impressive. Open up this rear window, pop down the support in place for the moment, and look at that. It is buried deep into the heart of that engine bay, right down towards the ground, lowest center of gravity possible, and right towards the center of the car. And when we saw the engine bay on the SF90 for the first time, I remember being mesmerized by how is it possible that an engine can fit all the way down there? But that's where you've got your Testarossa, the redhead on the 4-litre twin-turbo V8. Now this is the Ferrari production road car with the biggest turbos ever, helping to take it up to 1,050 horsepower. Of that, this engine, the 4-litre twin-turbo V8, makes 830. So up 50 horsepower from the SF90, even up 20 horsepower from the SF90 XX. But it all comes from the engine itself. The SF90 had 780. The XX uses an extra boost system to also get more power from the electric motors. Combine them together, and it doesn't quite work like this, but you have 842 newton meters of torque. The impressive thing is when you look at the performance figures. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles per hour, 2.3 seconds. 0 to 200 kilometers an hour, 124 miles per hour, 6.3 3 seconds. That is blisteringly fast, and the top speed is 330 kilometers an hour, 205 miles per hour. Now, it's got the big turbos, it's got a lot of lightweight components to make up for the extra weight that comes from the turbos. For example, heat shields that are derived from the 296 Challenge. It has different components derived from the F80, but you have an electric motor that sits between the engine and the gearbox to support the power and delivery to the rear, and you have 2 further electric motors on the front axle, which means when you reverse the car, you're driving in full electric. The gearbox is all about forwards gears. You can have about 25 kilometers, 16 miles of electric range in full if you wish, but it's a very different program and setup to that of the XX, and it is a very, very impressive engine bay that we shall close down just for the moment. On the topic of the electric motors, they actually decouple at high speed. Electric motors are more for getting you off the line or for full electric driving. So at 210 kilometers an hour, 130 miles per hour, it disconnects the electric system, and above that, you're running purely on the combustion engine. I want to show you in the front though, because one of the big topics with the SF90 was a relative lack of luggage space, but there's also quite a cool view. So let's just open this up, lift up the panel from right under there, and this is where, firstly, you have the RACE system. The electrics just on display with this kind of PlayStation-esque controller, and secondly, 74 litres of luggage capacity in the front with your personalisation specifications plaque. You can fit a briefcase and a jacket in there, but you're not really going to be going on a decent length road trip. Full carbon fibre bonnet, some of the different panels around the bodywork are carbon. You can actually opt to have this blade in the centre in carbon and the bumperettes as well. Press that back down, click it into place though, and we should get to the interior. The door itself is actually one of the most complicated body panel pieces that Ferrari have ever made when you start to think about the different shapes and the way it moulds around. But the interior of this car is fitted with your regular seat, but with the Daytona inserts and a more typical finish. 70% of the cars will be more likely to be ordered in this specification. I want to show a little bit more through it. For example, the engine bay releases here, your buttons on the door where you have for the bonnet, the fuel filler cap and the charging port, your memory seat controls, and interestingly, the window controls have moved to the door for the first time in many years on a Ferrari model. One of the biggest topics of conversation, and it kind of bugs me, it's almost overdone, is the fact that we now have physical buttons on the steering wheel for your controls and the connection with the car by being able to press the engine start stop button. However, against that, it's moved the E-Manettino to now being in the middle at the bottom, which is actually the one that you want to use more regularly when you're driving and was more easily accessible when it was here. I would prefer those the other way around, but they are where they are. The Manettino itself operates by rotating it through different settings, and you press it to go into the bumpy road mode. And they've also got a new system for the curved digital display up in front that's more responsive and quicker as well. To the left, you've got your mirror controls, a couple of other settings like loading the surround cameras. To the right, you have your climate control as part of this floating instrument binnacle, very much flanking around the steering wheel and giving the driver that real sense of focus and separating out the passenger side. This is all new as well, having this carbon fibre central piece up through the middle and raising the stick shift style control for the DCT up from where it sat previously down on the lower part of the tunnel to more of a position like it is in the F80. It might feel like it's close to you, but it's actually really easily accessible and in some ways feels like an old dated manual sitting up there proud. The key sits right down in an insert just here, the Ferrari keys that launched back with the Roma and have continued through the latest crop of cars, and obviously you can change all of the colours and trims to your heart's content. On the passenger side, you've got a digital display there that shows either the rev counter or the music or different settings. You've got the glove box right underneath, the footrest down here as well, so a very nice zone for the passenger to be seated, especially in these very comfortable seats. There isn't really anything by way of storage space back here, the tiniest of shelves and a little pouch almost that you can fit a couple of things in this case with the optional carbon backrest, and obviously a very nice view through the engine bay back behind. It's a cozy cabin, but it's one that's very much for purpose. You'll notice on the cameras, I think you probably get a purple light that comes from the sensors. Obviously being a new car, it has to have, especially here in Europe, all of the different systems and ADAS options that you could possibly imagine finding on such a car, and there are a lot of them. I do think it's a good thing we've got the buttons back. I just think it's over-discussed and we'll forget about it in the very near future. It will become normal again. There are some additional developments, things underneath the skin. So given it's a hybrid with front electric motors, one of those is combining the braking with the regeneration and the electric system that you have here. To smoothen it out, they've introduced a new anti-jerk strategy to give a better driving experience. Combined with that, while we're here, we've got wider tyres than the SF90, so up from 255 to 265 at the front and up from 315 to 325 at the rear. We've got new brakes, 410mm discs at the front, carbon ceramics as standard, and new pads front and rear, and the new cooling system to obviously help and prolong the amount of hard driving that you can do with the car. It also has a new Ferrari dynamic vehicle estimator, which is to do with all of the systems reporting together to be able to optimize the strategy, to be able to give the ultimate in performance and in driving experience. Now, one thing from the previous models in Ferrari's history, when they've introduced a new car, it's had either a new chassis or a new engine. This retains the development of the chassis and it retains the development of the engine, but they've done a lot in terms of the design and in terms of the systems to give it this new experience and to give it a new slot in the lineup, which makes sense. And it will probably have a 5 or 6 year lifespan before we'll see a complete overhaul from the next generation that will come further down the line. We've come out from the pit lane then because I now have the key to this one. Yes, we've gone from a yellow car to a yellow car, but I am going to be taking this for a drive on the road and you are coming along. And to be honest, this is the bit that I think for me is the most relevant when it comes to the 849 Testarossa, because I've done a lot of road miles with both the SF90 Stradale and the SF90 XX. So we're going to see what this is actually like in a familiar environment, because we've been here for quite a few different events. It's windy, as you can tell. We're expecting rain to come soon, but step one, let's get in and get this on the road and go see what it's like to drive. The biggest difference now then is that we press the magic button. Wake up the car, the familiar sounds. We're in hybrid. Of course, we have the electric seat adjustments, and you have more adjustments from the control on the steering wheel. So on this button, you would clear the messages. We've got Android Auto or Apple CarPlay connected immediately with their Tour. You can press this and then do your seat adjustments and positions. We also want to press and hold that to turn off the annoying ADAS stuff. So all of that is gone. You can configure that. And I'm going to press performance because I want the engine on. We are in auto, ready to go and drive. So let's venture out from the circuit. Oh, interesting. So obviously helmet off. You hear a lot more noise from the car and very different noises to what you hear when your ears are muffled. And the biggest change is that it's a much throatier, lower pitch to the sound. It's a very different sound, I would say, to either the SF90 or the XX. And that's actually a surprise. But I think the whole idea, and you see it with the design, is that this is something different. This is not just an update effectively of the same. I'm going to go into sport and bumpy road. This is, if you have those cars, what else could it offer in your lineup, in your portfolio? To adjust the mirrors, you have to still use the haptics. They haven't changed that to physical buttons. Maybe that's the next thing people can demand of Ferrari. I definitely want those slightly repositioned. Obviously for me it's all fairly second nature, as I know most of these controls, commands and how it all works. I do think though not having to look down is beneficial. I'm not going to sit here and say otherwise. It's just something that I probably wouldn't have made such a big fuss over as the media did. A lot of reviews, test drives, etc. To drive, it immediately feels comfortable, feel at home, feel very familiar. It's got a better view rearwards than the regular SF90 because of the angled window rather than having the slats across. So that is a big, big, big step up. Everything else kind of works as you would like it to. Thank you very much. All right, the open road beckons. The views here are already quite nice, but believe me, it is going to get even better when we get up to the valleys and rivers. So onwards, let's go find something awesome. It will probably come as no surprise that in sport and auto on the gearbox and bumpy road on some very nice twisty roads, the car is superb. But this is where it's quite SF90-esque in the sense that there's not a ton emotionally going on. It's not loud, there's a little bit of V8 sound being piped in, but it's not dramatic in any form. And obviously I'm being pretty gentle and lethargic with the throttle pedal. Where it gets more interesting initially is if we go into manual, and I like that that's much closer to you and easier to reach. Start dropping some gears and just show you a little bit of the mid-range. That's 4,000 or so RPM in third gear. There's a ton more sound and character to it as soon as you take control of the gearbox yourself. Where it gets even more though is if you go up into race, and as with all Ferraris you then pop it back into bumpy road again. Its default configuration is in line with which mode you have set, and start dropping the gears. They get faster, they get sharper, and they have a ton more character. I mean, listen to that. They only get really violent when you're very heavily on the throttle or very high up the rev range. So it's pretty dynamic in the context of changing what it's doing depending how you're driving. I tell you what, this feels like a completely different car to the car that I've been driving for the last few minutes. Oh, listen to that whip snap. It's a totally different sound though to either of my SF90s, and that's what I'm trying to get my head around a little bit. Ride is super smooth, very gentle. It's stiffer than the SF90s. The springs are 35% stiffer, but they're actually lighter as well. Obviously they have more dynamic capability, a wider breadth of ability. I find it interesting how Ferrari are so focused on giving you, the occupant, the feeling, you know, the sound, the excitement of driving it. It's obviously ballistically fast. I mean, I don't know if I actually can anywhere put my foot down 100% on the road, because you're in silly territory before you've even blinked. And don't get me wrong, it might not even sound like we go Mach 10, but each acceleration here, mid-range on the revs, is really, really quick. And it actually transforms. It's a completely dual-charactered car. This is super interesting. Turn in, obviously there's a little bit of body roll because Ferrari make their road cars as road cars. Even the XX, which I know is slightly ironic as a track moniker, it's the whole point of the XX program, is still a road car first and foremost, so it still has a suppleness to the way that it drives, and this is the same. You could argue they can go stiffer. You can get the Assetto Fiorano if you want it to be stiffer, but if you're buying a car like this to use literally as a road car, then it doesn't make sense. This is the setup that you would have, other than if you like the visuals. It's really, really fast in second gear, third gear, just a lot of go. And I tell you what, driving on super smooth tarmac is perhaps a little bit hard to judge because it's not going through the paces and really being worked in that way. But here right now, this is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, this is pretty good. Not only up here are the views crazy, but right now the sky is, well, bright right above us, but so dark through the valley. I'm slightly anxious that we're driving literally into the heart of a thunderstorm. I popped it back out of bumpy road. I find on this smooth tarmac it makes quite a significant difference, and you actually just want to have it in the normal setting, which is quite unusual. I'm a big fan of putting every car into their softest setup normally, so this is a rare one for me, but I like it in here just as we are on this particular bit of tarmac. Something I've not really done anything of is pop it back into auto and go full e-drive, because at the end of the day it's a hybrid, right? You can, and you might say, well, it's a 1,000 plus horsepower supercar, so why would you ever want to? But I can tell you from ownership experience that actually I've regularly found myself for short journeys just doing it in electric, or I found that I pull up somewhere late at night or go through a small quiet village and you just pop it in electric. And it's not necessarily about needing it, but actually when you've got it, you feel it's almost in some ways the responsible thing to do to use it. Now, obviously the primary purpose of the electric is to give you additional performance, and that's where it really excels. Now, if you put your foot down fully in electric with 220 horsepower, because of the way it's programmed, like now, foot flat, it's not like it immediately takes off. It's not slow, it's 220 horsepower, but it takes just a moment to get rolling, and I think that's down to the computers and the calibration and the setup behind it. But you feel like this going downhill, like it's some kind of go-kart. electric go-kart just flowing from one way to the other way, letting it happen in near-on silence, just a speaker playing outside. The other thing that you've probably noticed throughout this video that is immensely frustrating is how quiet it is outside. For petrol heads, this is a ginormous bugbear, but it's regulation. 72 decibels on the drive-by severely restricts what cars can do. This is all the sound they're allowed to make nowadays, in factory specification. That begs the question, well, if you buy one, will you just change the exhaust? But then you're going to have warranty issues to discuss should anything go wrong. And with the costs of powertrains like this, do you want to get modifying it and play that chance? Unfortunately, it is what it is, because a lot of people don't like the sound of noisy cars, and especially don't like the sound of cars that are just parked up in a city centre revving away. So arguably we've done it to ourselves, but this is the state of affairs in today's world. No more can we have a car that makes an amazing sound. So the question is, can we do a little electric overtake? I think we probably can. More than enough. That's actually quite satisfying, that this can just manage well enough like that. This scenery right now is awesome. So even though it's absolutely drenched, back into performance, back into manual, back into letting the gearbox do its thing. We're on the P0R tyre, so there are a few different tyre options. There's a Bridgestone run flat for certain markets. P0R is the standard, then you've got your Cup 2 or your Cup 2R. I'm a big fan of Cup 2s, but if you're going to daily it and use it in weather like this, we're probably on the right tyre choice. Normal P0 for today. So much for coming somewhere scenic. Have a look at this. Well, actually, we probably need to run the wipers first. It's pretty grim. We are right beside the Rio Tinto, and we're not getting out of the car here. So yeah, that one's kind of game over. The wipers, well, I was going to say they aren't the best, but they are dealing with an unfair amount of water right now. I guess it's going to be back towards the track, because it's not very pleasant. There are times that you want to be in a 1050 horsepower supercar, and there are times when you absolutely and truly definitely don't. And this is one of the latter, and I'm actually going to go into wet mode because, to be completely honest, this just got absurd. This is some seriously heavy rain. Well, at least we'll see if the car is waterproof. Right into the heart of the thunderstorm. I don't think we're going to be able to escape this one. It's been fun though, managed to catch a little bit of the roads in the sunshine. Just not this. Tell you what though, it's part of driving a car. What's it actually like when everything gets very nasty? And what's weird, at least in the left-hand drive car, is there's probably 20 centimetres at the left of the windscreen that don't get caught by the wiper. So it leaves a massive amount, especially around left corners. Anyway, as you can hear, it's pretty noisy with the rain right now. I'm going to take this one very, very carefully. Miraculously, up ahead it looks like we are finding some sunshine again. But before we get there, or while we're getting there, I want to talk for a moment about the drive mode logic, the different settings and modes. So at the moment I'm in normal, or sport rather, on the Manettino, but the e-Manettino is the interesting one. Obviously I prefer it the other way around, but if you go into hybrid, what's fascinating to me, or at least a nice change that they've made, is that when you're driving like this and coasting along in electric, the screen in front of you is effectively greyed out. It shows you how much boost, how much of the battery that you're using, but it's not particularly visually dramatic. Press your foot on the throttle, wake it up instantaneously, and you get this visualized representation of it going on and off, with the screen illuminating in one of a few different colors that you can choose in the software, which I think is a really nice touch because it's not all that loud behind you. You do obviously get a murmur, and it's instantaneous. It just instantly fires, which is different to the 296 but familiar from the SF90 beforehand. Obviously in different drive settings like performance, it will keep the battery mostly charged. In qualifying, it will keep the battery basically fully charged. But it's really quiet as this goes on and off. Like really, really quiet. Just give it a little press. I don't even know if you hear it on the microphones. And then when you go into full electric drive, I can reach over and press the button. You get a little blue ED on the dashboard to let you know that's how you've got it set up. and that's full throttle, 100% acceleration. When you're in that setting, obviously, I think most people will drive it with the engine on, but it's nice to have that electric and hybrid backup and ability should you want it. What I'd like to get to though, and this is especially relevant as an SF90 Stradale owner, is the question really of would you upgrade from an SF90 to the 849 Testarossa? And I think it's a really tricky one initially because, like I said, previous Ferrari models have been a significant step change, either engine or chassis or something, from one model to the next, whereas on paper at least this hasn't. Yes, there are some significant changes to the engine, to the powertrain, to the components, to the software. You feel a lot of that. It's a completely different look. Visually it might as well be literally a different car, and the capabilities are stretched even further. There's more performance, but it's also smoother riding, so it has a lot going for it. But do those things alone justify the probably £250,000 upgrade if you're an SF90 owner into an 849? Because that is a big chunk of money. In fact, it's a chunk of money that could go and buy you a nice 296 with very few miles on it, or order a brand new Amalfi, or even pick up a nice 812. You get where I'm going. That's just a change from SF90 to one of these. Obviously, if you like new cars, if you like the new tech, this is the latest and greatest. Everything's upgraded, and you know, some people might not like some of the changes to the inside. Some people might not like the change on the steering wheel. I'm sure most people do, and you can now order the upgraded steering wheel, or at least the button steering wheel for an SF90. But I think it's a really difficult topic. I wasn't sure which way today would go, whether I would get out saying I absolutely need to lock in and order one of these, but I'm not getting out saying that I wouldn't either. I'm somewhere on the fence, and maybe I just need a little bit more time as we dodge a little bumpy bit of ground there to make that decision up for myself. It's not an easy one. I think it's a cool car, and if I didn't have an SF90, it would be an awesome thing to just use, to drive. Yeah, okay, you're not taking it on massive road trips given the lack of luggage space, but if you want to go on casual drives here and there in something that really is hypercar level performance, but nothing like hypercar price, I mean, this is everything in one, right? I think it's a more exciting car to drive than even Valhalla, which I drove recently. It's probably on a par for excitement with Temerario. There's a little bit more to that equation because obviously there's performance, there's materials, and this is a notch above that, yet it's not as dramatic as Valhalla by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a nice step on from SF90, bringing in some XX characteristics, but without going totally bonkers and over the top. Where do I sit? I don't really know. The weather is no better back here at the track either, but this is an opportunity then to take a look through some of the displays. We went through the interior earlier, but it's a little bit different when you start pressing the buttons. Of course, the SF90 had a similar looking display, but it had these tiles that you could swipe across to go between your different modes. Now it's a more traditional setup, but still controlled from the toggles here. You've got the view, so you can go full screen either to the horizontal rev counter and your information for track driving, or you can go through the full Apple CarPlay, Android Auto screen should you wish, or alternatively have this style display. Then on the left side, this is where you can go in the vehicle settings through hybrid, trip, G-meter, ADAS, all of this, whatever it is exactly that you would like to have up and set on your screen. Obviously just select that. You also then have the ability to go on the right screen to enable your phone connection. And a few different settings and things, so it's pretty easy to use and all makes sense. You can single press on here if you want to choose between the different ADAS settings, whichever it is, and then you have your cruise control, which is actually done with this toggle, which I quite like for driving. And on the back there are some additional toggles which are for volume and next track, so you can press it as well to interact with that. We touched on these controls: hybrid, electric, or qualifying start, where it gives you an extra blip of the revs, Manatino, and your wipers over to the right side. This is still a little bit fiddly to go through the settings for thermal comfort to do each thing, because you have to like go across the menus, but at the end of the day I guess it works, and you can have a lot of customization to make yourself as comfortable as possible inside here. For the passenger, you've got a few things on this screen, you know, the performance display, audio, heated seat, again, adjusting various things in there. And this is beyond the controls that you have on the side of the seat. I keep going for the window switches somewhere here because I'm so used to that from every Ferrari ever, but they are now over on this side with a button right on top to pop open the door. You've got some small storage bins here, but not a lot, and a wireless charging pad and a little bit more storage just here. In fact, you've got a slot there that you can pop your phone in, I think, to be slightly out of the way. And obviously you've got a little armrest cubby there as well with 2 USB-C ports for your phone and other things. I generally quite like the interior. It's a little bit different to before. I just wouldn't go with yellow Alcantara because it's already dirtying in this car, and I can imagine it's a hard one to keep clean. I wouldn't mind a leather perhaps on there instead. And as you can see here, we've got the wraparound floor carpets, which is an upgrade option as well. This car is very, very highly equipped. I think that's it though for showing you the screens and the interior. Obviously revs up very nicely. This sensor does mean that you lose seeing the odometer behind. You can imagine from your driver's eye line, it sits just behind. I tend to like Ferrari steering wheels quite close to me. Different people have different preferences. And obviously you've got the carbon fiber LED driver's zone in here as well. In fact, you've got a very highly equipped car. They often are for press cars. Every single carbon option, you could have this just standard piano black instead of carbon, as you can probably imagine. And they probably want to take this away and go get it cleaned up, prepared, and out of this abysmal weather. Well, that's it from a very wet and now miserable Monteblanco in Spain, experiencing the 849 Testarossa, as they are off in the distance as well. I didn't expect that, but make use of the weather. Why not? There's definitely a rear bias to it, isn't there? What I was going to say though, Testarossa name has been a big talking point, looks have been a big talking point, but we've got a little bit more of an understanding of what the car is all about now. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you enjoy these kinds of cars, check out the one right over there and make sure you're subscribed. That's it for now though. I'll see you again very soon. Cheers.